Good evening, everyone. This is Wednesday evening, July 8th. And what I would like to do this evening is actually just talk about something a little more mechanical, to use a word I have been using in some of my grading and commentary, about assignments and discussions. And I think you'll find it helpful. And one of the reasons I waited until tonight was I really wanted to make sure that we had a chance to go through one round of discussion and a round of writing a paper, a quick paper, and see if I was going to have to make this announcement or not. And unsurprisingly, I do. I thought after the discussion maybe I was going to get away with being lazy and not have to do this, but I realized after writing the paper there are a couple of points I do want to illustrate, and I want you to understand why I do them. Okay, so basically, the reason I make some comments outside of the content of discussion and papers is that one of the overarching goals that we have in the Malcolm Baldrige School of Business is that everyone become a skilled communicator. And like it or not, written communication is still a very big part of business communication. And the better we do it, the better off we will be as practitioners. And that's why we emphasize communication. That's why I emphasize writing. Now, writing is a tough skill, and I realize that probably most of you haven't written anywhere near as much as, let's say, I had to back when I was in college. Why? Because we deliver material and we deliver education differently. It's not anything you've done wrong or missed out on. It's just the way things are now done, 40, almost 50 years since I've been a student. So things are changing, and I recognize that. But there's some constants, and one of that is effective communication. So, two particular things I want to talk about tonight. One is the discussions and the assignments both have something in common. Generally, we ask a question, a specific question, or perhaps in the case of the assignments, a set of questions. And one thing I am now, from this point forward, going to specifically ask that you not do is do not write the question into the body of either your discussion post or your paper. Why? Well, there's one very mechanical reason. As you probably may have known from other courses or may have just discovered now, one of the things that Post uses in all our business courses where we have writing is the feature that's an add-on to Blackboard called Safe Assign. And Safe Assign is there exactly for that purpose. It's an academic integrity tool. A lot of people want to say it's an anti-plagiarism tool. Let's not look at it in that draconian way. It's an academic integrity insurance policy. It lets you know how much of your work may have been used before, may have been written somewhere else. What does it look like? Are the quotations where they are? Those kind of things. And one of the first things I see when I open your papers is I get a Safe Assign matching percentage. Okay, and I'll be very honest with you, it's pretty low. I'm probably not even going to look at it. So if it's under 10%, I'm not going to look at it, just as a matter of time. That's because in a short paper, it's maybe even less important than a long paper. That generally means that you've got references. And references, by definition, are not original work, are they? They're copies. They're going to be in a specified form. They're going to be copies of information you've taken somewhere, appended to your paper. So, of course, it's going to show up as matching. But when I start seeing numbers in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 60, 80%, this causes alarm bells to go off. So in a short paper, just understand, please, that a lot of references, which have to be there, I'm going to look because maybe that's what's causing the high matching percentage. And in general, that's what does it. But the one thing you have to remember is you can't use other people's work. So if you are using other people's work, if you're using material from a source, make sure that it's cited and referenced properly. And that is something so very important. It is just not only does it protect the original author, it sort of protects you and actually confirms your work because it shows that there's another published, edited source that agrees with you or that you are using to form your ideas. It's a very important part of academic writing. So just make sure that we're doing that. Now that leads me to another point, okay? The writing in the questions, guess what that is? That's materials from a published source. And they show up as matching too. So suddenly I may have references which are a harmless set of matching references in that number, and now I have the questions that the textbook asks, and I've got two almost false positives. And I'm looking at something and I've got to spend time figuring it out. But there's another actually more important reason I ask you not to write the questions in. And this happened to a couple of people who turned in assignments and turned in discussions this week. What I find, and what other instructors and actually some researchers have found, is that if a student writes the question in, guess what they answer? The question. Nothing more, nothing less. They answer that question. And what it does is it tends to build a little fence around their thinking, and everybody just stays within that comfort zone of that fence and doesn't allow themselves to think outside that fence, to think, I hate to use the phrase, outside the box, do not think expansively, do not think creatively. And in a 400 level course, in an imprecise science like management, we need you to think creatively and expansively. So when you write that question in, you tend to confine your thoughts to that question. It's not a good academic practice. It doesn't produce really, really good results. It produces basic results. This is a 400. We need to be beyond basic. The other thing that I want people to understand is another mechanical reason, opposite thinking to a lot of people. It's reusing your own work, either in whole or in part. And basically, I'm here to tell you, you can't do that. That is not commonly accepted academic practice. And I know somebody will look up, and it really didn't happen. There were just some references to papers that people had written in the past. Nobody tried to pass off an old paper as one that they wrote for another class as their paper for this class. That didn't happen. But when you do a new class, when you go into and take a new class, that is a new entity. Work submitted for an old class belongs to that class, so to speak. And people are going to say, well, wait a minute, it's my paper, I wrote it. Yes, but you wrote it for another course in another context. And yes, we do expect you to build on your prior work. That is a commonly accepted practice. But just like anything, say, you may have gone and searched for, looked up, whatever, when you use that paper that you previously wrote as a source of information for this new paper, you become your own source. And guess what? You have to cite and reference that old paper so that we know it's not original work and that we know that you are actually performing some scholarship by using yourself. All right, you're growing, you're doing things that are on a more advanced level. So just keep that in mind. Okay, prior work, using it is okay. Copying it is another matter. And that's not just my policy. That's not just the university's policy. That is standard academic practice. It's serious enough to where in a grad school situation, at the very least, the paper would get thrown out, if not cause you some severe difficulties. So I just want people to make sure that we understand that. So I know this has been a little informal, but I hope it's been a little informative as to why you maybe saw some of the comments I put into your feedback. And for the most part, I was very happy with what we saw this week. And I have met my schedule. There's still a couple of papers to come in because people had asked for extensions for some very particular reasons, and those I'm still waiting for. But please, take a look at the feedback. Listen to this. Make sure you think about it before you write your next paper. And the biggest thing is, if you have a question beforehand, please ask. Okay? Thank you very much.